the content of the speech, I'm afraid, was disgusting. To cite Sir Nicholas Winton, who dedicated an astonishing period of his life to helping child refugees escape the Nazis, to cite him in defence of her conduct in office, a period in which child refugees have been abandoned and promises to Alf Dubs, himself a beneficiary of the Kindertransport, have been broken. Lord Dubs, his amendment was broken. The promise was not kept, and yet she cited this man, Sir Nicholas Winton, in defence of her position, and then she dared to talk of compromise. Compromise is the polar opposite, rhetorically speaking, of the will of the people. As I've said to you now for 3 years, which people? Because if you're talking about compromise, you've got to be talking about the 48% of the population and not just the 52%. We might play it again. How long is it? Have we got it all on tape? I might have a little play of it again and just focus on the content of it rather than the ramifications that we've been contemplating and considering for the last 2 hours. I can't believe I couldn't quite believe my ears, but the more the dust has settled, the more incredulous my ears have become. Boris Johnson is a man who's been fired from jobs for lying about quotes allegedly from his own godfather, I beg your pardon. Boris Johnson fired from the Times for making up quotes from his own godfather, okay? Lied to party leaders, lied to wives, lied to mistresses, went to court to try to stop you from finding out about a little girl that he'd fathered out of wedlock. He actually went to court so that you wouldn't find out about his appalling sexual incontinence. And I mean it when I say, because I used to go with sort of conservative coffee mornings and things like that. I'd go with my mum sometimes, 'cause it was more of a social occasion. And I always had this sort of begrudging suburban respect for that type of Tory, a shire Tory. Because although I felt they were a little bit immune to the suffering of others, in some cases, they did seem to subscribe to values. Values you could loosely describe as Christian conservatism. And that would be absolutely outraged by the idea of a man going to court to stop you finding out that he'd fathered a little girl outside wedlock while lying to his wives and lying to his mistresses, lying to his voters, lying to his employers, lying to his party leaders, lying to his constituents, lying to his interviewers. There's a recording of him that I'll play later in the programme of him colluding with a now convicted criminal to get a journalist beaten up. Yes, you heard me correctly. It's on tape. Boris Johnson agreeing to help a former schoolfriend from Eton to get hold of the address of a journalist because the former schoolfriend from Eton wanted to have him battered. So you see what I mean? I just mentioned any one of those 6, 7, 8 transgressions, and theoretically, from where I sit, that should be the end of it for a Conservative leadership contender. But it's not, which I think signals the end of any claim to moral high ground or morality from the Conservative Party. As you all know, if you listen to this programme on a regular basis, it became inevitable when they introduced base liars to the public life. As soon as Farage is allowed to speak unchallenged, undiluted lies and nonsense, the Conservative Party is finished. So when they chose to invite him onto their bus to get Brexit over the line, that was the death knell for any claims in the Tory party to integrity or probity. For the very simple reason that if one liar goes unchallenged, lies move into the mainstream, which is how you have a man who conspired to have a journalist beaten up, who went to court to stop you finding out about his daughter born out of wedlock, who's lied to both of his wives, all of his mistresses, every constituent, every employer, every party leader, every colleague, every interviewer, every journalist he's ever encountered. He's not just lied to them, he's actively agitated to deceive them. But 120,000, often, possibly mostly elderly, mostly male, Conservative Party members, people who have paid money to be members of the Conservative Party, are probably going to make him your next Prime Minister. And we spent the whole weekend talking about Michael Gove's 20-year-old cocaine use. some breaking news for you. Nigel Farage is, let me get this right, he's currently delivering a letter to Theresa May at Downing Street asking for the Brexit party to have a seat at the negotiating table. I know what you're thinking. Why couldn't he just buy a stamp like the rest of us? Answer, because then he wouldn't get the slavish attention from all the film crews and the glorious opportunity to distract attention away from the fact that he turned up in Peterborough yesterday expecting to do a lap of honour and ended up hiding in a toilet. Always happy to provide subtitles to political stories.
Trump, I'm indifferent to him. He does lie, but he stops the worst alternative and he frustrates the worst alternative. I'd include you in that.
Okay.
So it sounds a little bit childish, but I think people, they do need to step back and think, why do I feel the way that I do? A lot of it is social conditioning, and it is a chance to kick the other side, and I think it is.
But then we're back to football. Why are we on different sides? I would stick up for your wife when she was being attacked by racists.
Well, so would I.
Well, I know you would. So why are we on? Why do you think we're on different sides then?
Because of the way you've been socially, the way you've been brought up, the people you met, the people who've influenced you, etc. The same with me, you know.
No, I'm anti-racist, and you've got an Asian wife. So what are the two sides you're talking about?
The left and the right, I would say. I mean, to me,
I don't know what that means really, because I'm probably more critical of Jeremy Corbyn at the moment than I am of anybody in the Conservative Party. So
what about the points-based system for immigration? To me, that's common sense. What's that to you?
It can be common sense, but it doesn't really stand up to scrutiny in the context of the economic impact of immigration. And of course, we could already have introduced rules regarding what financial means and what work you had in place before we left the European Union. So that for me is a red herring, but I don't mean that to be dismissive. It just doesn't actually, under proper scrutiny, make sense. And Australia has a points-based immigration, and people like your wife would be subjected to even more racism there than they could potentially be here. But I understand why you use the word sides, and I understand why you reach for left and right. Yep. But I don't know who you think is on the other side when it comes to sticking up for people like your wife.
I think it's people with
What about that breaking point poster, which was supposed to make us frightened of people coming here from the Middle East, regardless of whether they had any right to be here or not? Which side were you on with that?
With people coming to... I disagree with it. One of the things
with the poster?
The government...
Did you disagree with the poster? Because the reason I despise that poster...
I disagree with the poster, yeah.
Okay, but you think you're on the other side to me?
I think that the government have got lots to answer for with immigration, because what they did is, and I think Angela Merkel did this as well, she said, right, let's open the floodgates, but they did nothing to encourage integration.
Well, we've got a mayor of London here who's a Muslim. You phoned me up to tell me that you're on the other side politically to me. You can't get much more integrated than being elected mayor of a country's capital city, and Donald Trump has chosen to attack him. So whose side are you on in that conversation?
Well, I would say that the mayor of London should be concerned with the events of London.
So would I, but that's not what I asked. I asked whose side are you on in that context? The fully integrated son of an immigrant, or the racist American president?
I don't particularly like Sadiq Khan, and Donald Trump kicks him, so he suits my purpose.
So you're on the side of the racist against the Asian?
No, I'm on the side of the guy who's against the other guy whose policies I disagree with. But
no, it's nothing to do with policies. We're talking about Donald Trump's personal attack on Sadiq Khan, shortly after saying people should integrate more and pointing out that Sadiq Khan's parents came here from overseas. You can't get much more integrated than being elected mayor. He's Asian. He's been the victim of attacks from Donald Trump that have never been inflicted upon a non-Asian.
And vice versa.
Sadiq Khan has attacked Donald Trump for being far right, mate, and he is. I mean, that's just a statement of record. He sympathises with the Ku Klux Klan.
See, I think
he bans Muslims. Is your wife a Muslim, or is she an Asian of a different religion?
No, she's an Asian, actually, who gets a hard time from the Muslims. I don't want to go into the details.
No, fine, but that's what side are you on? The side of the Asian or the side of the man attacking the Asian?
I'm on the side of I'm on the side of the guy who's frustrating the guy whose policies I disagree with.
Yeah, so you don't care whether he's fouling or not. You're just glad that the other bloke's getting hurt.
Do you know what? I think it's got down to as basic as that, James.
I do. I can't believe your honesty, but you're not. Okay. You're not in any way embarrassed by it.
It's just the way we are as people.
So he's a liar. He's a liar and a racist, but he's hurting Sadiq Khan, so I like him. I think is what you've said.
Sadiq Sadiq Khan, contrary to what Donald Trump says, is big and bad enough to be able to take
That's
that
not the point, though. I just
chin.
want to be clear that I've understood you correctly. Donald Trump is a liar, and he's a racist, and he stokes up the sort of feelings that could see your wife being victimised. But you're on his side because he's hurting Sadiq Khan, who you don't like for whatever reason.
If Donald Trump frustrates what I believe to be the detriment of our society, yes.
And the detriment of our society is people not integrating, which is why you don't like Sadiq Khan, who got himself elected mayor of our capital city.
Sadiq Khan is Labour, and he doesn't understand basic economics. Looking at the performance of Labour governments over the years, it would be disastrous.
You're jumping around again, aren't you?
Not really.
Well, you are, because we're talking about the words that you've said. Why do you like Donald Trump in the context of a battle with Sadiq?
I didn't say I like Donald Trump.
All right,
but
you talked about but you talked about sides.
Yeah, I do. And I think that's what it's come down to.
No, I think you're right.
We can talk about policies.
No, I think we can't talk about policies in a conversation about Donald Trump versus Sadiq Khan, because Donald Trump's impact upon, and also Sadiq Khan has incredibly limited powers over the economic scenarios in this city. But I'm agog with admiration for you. Well, admiration is not quite the right word. Gratitude. Because you were the holy grail caller I was looking for, and your honesty is really, really refreshing. But it scares the hell out of me. Sexuality isn't an opinion, mate. Sexuality is biological. Who you fancy is preordained. It's predestined by your chemistry, by your DNA, or whatever it might be. It's not an opinion. Religion is an opinion. You might find that difficult to swallow. Sexuality is not. Sexuality is like skin colour. You can't choose to be a different colour in any way than you can choose who you're going to fancy. So if you think it's an opinion, that's the problem. You need to understand that sexuality... the best way of proving this, Zaire, if you ever want to, and it does, I'm afraid, paint the parents you're defending as bigots, why would anybody choose to be gay in a world where you can get killed for it?
I think...
No, just answer me that question.
Yeah, I am. So say for there's when the gay pride come about and it was more open.
Why would anyone choose to be gay in a world where you can get killed for it?
People chose to hold their views, and they died for their...
Why would people choose to be gay voluntarily in a world where they can get killed for it, where they can get stoned to death?
Because if someone doesn't stand for what they hold or the opinions they hold,
it's not an opinion. Why would someone choose to be gay in a world where they could get buried in a hole and stoned to death for it?
But you're saying choose to be gay? If they, whether they choose or not choose, or whether it's in their DNA or if they're right by birth, they should stand for that. Everyone should stand for their right.
Well, then you're on the side. Then you're on the side of the people who think that the parents outside the school are wrong. But you rang in to tell me that they were right.
I'm saying they're completely right. I'm saying they're right to a point. They're right.
Except they're not, are they? As we've just proved, because you can't answer the question of why anybody would choose to be gay in a world where you get stoned to death for it.